A lot of the drive came from we lost every house growing up. Again, and no disrespect to my stepfather, he was a jack of all trade, master of none. I love him very much though, and he gave me the greatest gift of all. And you might guess what I'm about to say. He brought me to God. My wife and I both kind of forgot what was important, and ultimately it cost me my marriage. But ultimately, it was because, as the man of the house, I did not keep God front and center.
Tell me about the Shawn that worked at Cell One.
Yes.
Describe that person, because I know God made you as a driver and a type A personality.
Yes.
So tell me about you back then.
Well, the interesting part is out of college in '96, I lived in Cleveland for a year. I worked for Ross Labs, a division of Abbott. I was basically an overpaid stock boy. I made like 36,000 in a company car, which wasn't bad coming out of college then. Well, I did that for a year. I became the top rep for them, one of the top in the country, sold in all the product more, because basically what my job was is I called on about 75 grocery stores, and it was to get them to take in as much of the product from the distributor as you could get them to do, and also to get displays of like Ensure, which they make that, the adult nutritional. Well, again, I basically sold in ridiculous amounts, was up for a promotion, looked at the Miami scene. My Spanish wasn't strong enough, so that didn't help my case there, but I was bored. Quite honestly, the irony is I really only had to work about 10, 12 hours a week at the end because I had already sold it in at all the stores. It was just a matter of driving there, seeing it for, making it look good for corporate America. Then I find out guys are making $100,000 a year selling cell phones, and this was in 1997 when the still bag phone and analog. And I'm like, I don't care if I have to shovel crap. I'll do whatever. 100 grand a year again. Most of my family barely got by, and many bankruptcies within the family. No disrespect on my mom's side, which I grew up with, and so it was exciting. So I go, I get interviewed, and I get they virtually put me through a very long interview and say you don't have that much sales experience, and they really didn't act like they were going to hire me. And I basically said, if I'm not within 6 months one of the top reps in the country, I'll walk out and quit myself. And that's the biggest thing too I like to talk about is somebody's power and belief in themselves. It's huge. And most people just don't understand what they're capable of, but we can touch on that in a little bit. um, Anyway, so I get offered the job, but I get offered it in Mansfield, Ohio. Well, I'm from Columbus, and this job was just more about networking and selling phones to anybody that would buy them. So you didn't have leads. So I was, quite honestly, to add in a little funny part of it is when I got off of the job in Mansfield. Well, I went to take the drug test. I was so nervous because I didn't want to work at the Mansfield location, and I was leaving a Fortune 100 company. This is not a joke. I drank half of one of them 5-gallon things of water before I could take the drug test because I was so worked up. So I'm fine with the drug test, but I end up getting the job, but I tell them that I don't want to do it unless I can work in Columbus area. So I end up taking the job, getting it in the Columbus area, which I worked out of 3rd Street. There was a Tuffy muffler attached to it, and it was downtown and not far from Cat Singers. I like that place. Um, so I started the job there, and within 6 months, I was one of the top reps in the country consistently. And for the next 4 years, I went on to make about $14,000 a month, which was crazy money. And of all irony, you're talking 1997, 98, 99. Of all irony at that time, my family then called me Donald Trump, which is just comical that he went on to become president and all that. But again, my family coming from older school generation, many of them didn't graduate from high school on my mother's side.
Yeah.
And so it was just a big deal. And so I saved up $250,000 and went out on my own in 2001. And I couldn't afford my first store. I beat the streets for 6 months, saving enough money to get my first store in October of 2001, which was in Gahanna at Stone Ridge Plaza.
Yeah.
So that gives you the little summary, but you were also your question centered around the drive and that. Can you want to expand on that, and I can touch on it
I
more?
do. So I know Paul Kilzer.
Yes,
Okay, so you guys started your first store together, or did you
yes.
bring him in? Okay, so
No, we started together. I mean, quite honestly, no disrespect to Paul, I was afraid to do it on my own. I'm man enough to admit I wanted somebody with me.
yeah,
And so and again, I mean no disrespect to I respect Paul a lot, and we've talked since the breakup, if you will, many, many years ago. And I also, through the grace of God, was able to help him too sometimes. So
terrific. So you
um
guys did this together. You both were at Cell One.
yeah, well, when it cell one quickly became AirTouch. It was only cell one for a very small amount of time,
Okay,
and then it became AirTouch, and then it ultimately Verizon.
okay. So why? So you guys started your first store, Gahanna. You
Yes.
said you beat the streets, couldn't afford your first store, and so beating the
Someone
streets was
local helped
basically.
us.
You say that again.
Local helped us that, I mean, I think about very often. Um, Rick and Craig Warner of Warner Metal Works, very grateful for what they did. I mean, not only they gave us a location and address to use, which you had to use back then, and I can't get in trouble now since I don't work there anymore. But yeah, you had to have a store, so they gave us a storefront. But more importantly, Rick sit and talked to me and said, "You need to take the shot. Why are you not doing it?" And he gave me that push, and I will always be grateful. And I got to run into him and his family at a restaurant uh, many years back, and I got emotional in front of him and thanked him, and it was a very touching experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
I You may not know this, but I know you know that I was in the cell phone business for a period of time, and I ran my numbers through
Yeah.
Colin
Yep.
Levesque,
Yep.
and my store, my first store, only store, was first floor of the Levesque Tower.
Wow.
Okay, because it was available, and I paid $450 a month for that spot. Okay, so it's like every day I would drive down, start my day, and everything I did was B2B sales. So I just went
Yep.
out and served customers on their property, but that was my store because you had to have one. So
Yes.
just cool. So, yes, I want to know about you because I have to imagine, and I know you back then, not back then, but I knew you years ago as just a driver. And I want to know, like, tell me about how you saw people. How did you see yourself? Because making 14,000 a month back then, and it
Yep.
only went up from there,
Yep.
you have to, it has to build you up a little bit. So tell me about you then.
Well, um, a lot of the drive came from we lost every house growing up. Again, and no disrespect to my stepfather, he was a jack of all trade, master of none. I love him very much though, and he gave me the greatest gift of all, and you might guess what I'm about to say. He brought me to God. My dad's side was Jewish, and that's fine, but my stepfather, I'll never forget it. I got saved in the parking lot of a grocery store, actually at Bryson Livingston. It was called Tom Tarpey's, if I remember right. Yep. And it's the greatest gift at all, and I'll be forever in his debt. He passed me, rest in peace. Um, but he had a very, very beautiful heart. He just had trouble financially, consistently. But I financially helped from a young boy on. Originally I sold Jolly Ranchers and made tens of thousands of dollars, helped pay rent, buy my brothers and sister Christmas, many Christmases, and they know that. And I still support my mother to this day and my sister. Um, but sorry, I got off track there a little bit. But so the drive came from losing the houses. I wanted to see, and as a teenager too, I moved in with my grandmother in a 1,300 square foot home. She brought her new husband's kids into the house, and my grandpa slept on the couch and paid the bills. So I had two grandpas living in the same house. and all I could think about is I wanted a better life, not, for my family and friends and myself, of course. And most people that know me know my generosity. I gave away millions of dollars to my family and friends, and I don't regret it. Although the majority of them, it didn't make them happy or satisfy them enough. It's been that's a story in itself. But the drive obviously again came from being driven to make a difference in my family's life. And then I wanted a better life for myself after seeing my family fight over money almost daily. You know, I knew that money was a good tool, if you will, to have a better life. It's not everything. And especially at 52 years old now, realizing, what's really important. And youth is wasted on the young. Is that the saying? But um, that drive would have been there, and then I also say fear is a great motivator. Quitting that job making $14,000 a month, although I had a quarter million in the bank, the most of the quarter million was in the 401k from where the stock had accelerated highly, and they did a match and allowed you to buy it at a discount of 15% off, which is unheard of. It was incredible. I mean, I remember going nuts over it. I was even asking people to let me buy theirs because they wasn't buying it, because basically they'd let you buy it at 15% off of the beginning or the ending price of the quarter. So you did not lose. You made at least 15% immediately. And it was really, really nuts. And I laughed thinking about I remember borrowing on a credit card some months because I was maxing out every ability, because you were allowed to do 401 max and buy it at the discount. And so some months that were leaner or whatever, I'd have to buy groceries on a credit card. And I remember my wife saying, "My dad told me you were crazy." And but quitting that job, I was terrified because I'm like, man, I'm leaving 14K a month. But I also knew the only way to really surge forward is I didn't want to trade time for money. And I understood that I could only get so far. And they kept on cutting the commissions at corporate. And so that fear, quite honestly, I mean, I had the drive to start in the business, didn't care what it was, and become top, save a quarter million dollars because of the life I had seen. But then fear took over because I'm like, well, who wants to go backwards? Anybody that makes a certain amount, you're always wanting it to be higher, you know?
Yeah.
And but I knew at the very least that being an entrepreneur had its tax advantages from reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I knew that even if I made about half, I could live at about the same level, but I would have tons of hours free. And what could I do with that? And that's really what kicked it in.
Would you say your entrepreneurial journey started back in the Jolly Rancher days
For
or
sure.
now? Oh, back then.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was always hustling, but that started because back then you had to walk a separate line for a free lunch. And I really didn't want to do that. So that's when I started selling them, bought them for a penny, sold them for a dime.
That's right. That's right. I remember that story from back when, like, a gazillion years ago. I remember you telling me that one. So
Many times now I'll run into people and if somebody comes to visit, they'll bring me some Jolly Ranchers or something. It's kind of funny, but
I get it. So back then, were were you like very self-centered? Were you a self-centered individual? Would you consider yourself that? Like were the most important person in your life, or was it really a focus on other people, but you were just driven?
no, I can be honest and say it was self-preservation to a degree. I mean, I
Mhm.
wasn't gonna continue living with the 2 grandpas and, in a small home like that with 1 bathroom. Um, so, I mean, it was really yes. I mean, I think it starts that way probably for a lot of people when you're younger. Um, but I also knew that I wanted to help my family, and I did. I mean, they stopped losing houses after I stepped in permanently,
Sure.
and, to give my family and friends a better life is something that I did. Like, what they did with it is on them.
Yeah.
It didn't work out as much, and that's a deeper part of the story, but, um, I'm still very thankful that God had given me an ability to do that.
Right on. So what year was this that you moved out of that home?
Um 1993.
Okay, so 93,
Yes.
and you
That's
were
when I
married.
started. It might have been it actually might have been a little later. I moved in with my girlfriend, which became my wife, and
Okay,
yeah.
so it might have been a little later.
It might have been 94. I mean, I'm in the ballpark though.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to follow our journey here.
Yep.
So you moved out. You're now in 94. Is that when you guys started your first store?
No, at that point, no, I was in college.
Okay.
I moved out and with my girlfriend, she transferred from Bowling Green and then we went to Ohio State together.
Okay, terrific.
Yes.
So went to Ohio State together, and you're there for, I guess, 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, I was there for 4 years and an extra 2 quarters, I think it was. And then I started working for Ross and moved to Cleveland for 1 year, and then I moved back to Columbus.
Terrific.
Yep,
Okay. So now you're over in Gahanna. You're opening your first store, which I think is even still there. It's
it
still a
is.
Verizon store.
Yeah.
Okay. So you open your first store, and I think your second store was in Powell.
Yes.
Okay. So you have 2 stores. At that point, were you imagining, I'm sure you were, but were you imagining 10, 20, 50, 100 stores, or not
I
yet?
didn't, I almost found it impossible to get to that until, quite honestly, I read E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Have you heard of that book
Oh,
before?
yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean anything, some people have or haven't, but I know you're an avid reader and stuff too. But, that book, it can be just words to people, but I actually cried over it because I'm like, I was like, how the hell will I ever grow this thing when I'm literally doing every job? I'm the janitor, I'm a salesperson, whatever. And it really helped me understand the difference between working in the business and working on it. And
Yeah.
honestly, most entrepreneurs don't understand that. And I know this because I've been fortunate to mentor thousands of people and many business owners, and I get to explain that to them because most people literally buy themselves a job when they start in business and they get burnout and they don't value their own time or what they would have made if they just kept on working. And so it's a very interesting thing. I mean, I really think I enjoy mentoring people. I just think about how many businesses I could help, if I walked them through that, even just having them start with the book. But many people can read a book and then not know how to apply it too. Uh, that's something as I look into my future, I love mentoring young people. I've mentored thousands of young boys that grew up without a father. Urban Meyer was the face of my charity for years, that I was a major contributor to, Team Focus, and I enjoyed getting to help people do that. A lot of people have that seed in them. And, well, I believe everyone does, and they just sometimes need the right person to help cultivate it and bring it to the next level. And especially, always go back to God. And we can touch on that too whenever. But
No, absolutely. So do you think like 2 stores, maybe 3 is the most you could have managed on your own? And in order for you to go beyond that, you had to not do what you were doing and figure out a way to expand.
yes,
Yeah. Okay. So what took you from that, other than the book? I know you can read the book, but there's things you had to do and implement. But what did you do to go from 2 stores to then just, in my mind, blowing up? That's what I consider you. You just
yeah,
blew up. All of a
it did
sudden I
go
would hear
great.
things.
We were opening a store, I think, on average about every 3 weeks. I mean, it really got absolutely nuts. Um, Unfortunately, the partnership ended with Paul and I, and that was very hard on me, by the way. I mean, I'm still very happy to say that that caused me severe pain. I am such a lover of people, and like, I don't know if he ever really understood that. It wasn't, two people see it in their own view or whatever, but like, I don't want to like throw too much out to make them, I guess you can edit what you want, but I pretty much offered every dollar to my name and at least one or two of the stores out of the three. I just literally knew I wanted that relationship wasn't good to keep moving forward. Um, I mean, I'll just be frank about it. I was just more of a go-getter. I felt
Mhm.
at that time. So anyway, I offered everything I could, and because I didn't want the pain of it, and I remember the equity in my home. That as a fact. Um, but that ended, and then I took off like like wildfire, gangbusters. And a lot of it was after reading E-Myth and understanding that I needed to empower people. And the biggest difference too that one of my core values is empowerment. Um, Education is part of the word empowerment to me. And what I mean by that is where we were different in growing. I literally taught all my salespeople in their early 20s of how to read financial statements, basically. I literally said, because they figured the 100 million a year we got to, and whatever it was as we were growing, was all mine to keep. So I explained to them, no, here's what your store cost. And I actually told them, and I can tell you, my best friend is my CFO still to this day. He was
Mhm.
at first flipped out. He's like, "You can't tell these kids how much we're making on every store." And I did. I did PowerPoint presentations, and I had them do book reports. I mean, again, things that they were not happy with. Like, I got a job here to sell. Now you're making me read a book and do a PowerPoint presentation, stand up with a suit on and give it to, yes, I did all
Wow.
that. Very proud of it. And many of them reach out now and thank me, and they went on, a lot of them, to be entrepreneurs themselves. I am very proud of that. I really am. And I still want that mentality. I never wanted to make more money at the risk of hurting someone else. And another great example I can say, as we were growing, if somebody moved to another store, sometimes they could make me, let's say, thousands of dollars more a month. Well, a lot of times these young people would be fine with driving 2 more hours a day, an hour there, an hour back, for another dollar an hour, whatever, 50 an hour. And I can say, no, I was like, I'll pay and have you moved and everything. I'm not going to take more of your life so I can gain more. Um, I'm proud of that too. And yeah, I don't ever want to get ahead because I'm taking part of somebody else's life. And I really, truly try very hard to have an environment that's not a job. And Toy Barno is a special place, because if you love cars and people, it's the old saying too, if you love what you do. But I do try to turn it into a place of fun as well as work. I don't even like that word there, but
No, it makes sense. Hey, you just mentioned 2 or 3 things that were totally, they had to be differentiators between you and any other person that had not only Verizon, but any other cell store in, let's just say, the Central Ohio area. I know that you went beyond Central Ohio, but
yes.
what did you do besides read the book and implement the things you just mentioned? What made your store so successful? What are some of the key elements of your system
Uh-huh.
that made them work?
Well, again, the empowerment and education piece was big, because it really, actually, they were like, man, he's sharing all this. Now I understand it. And then the other part of that is their compensation model was paid very heavy on when they hit the plateau. And no good deed goes unpunished. So they would laugh now, though, those that watch this, is we did keep raising the bar. But what we did is gave them a massive piece of the pie past it. So what happened is, at one point I was paying about 2.5 times what everybody else paid. I remember, because other agents got very angry. And at one of the meetings in Pennsylvania, I think it was, we even left. They were so angry. They're like, you guys are ruining everything because you're paying so much money. No, we took many people to six-figure incomes that were young, and never, they made $10 an hour and went to six figures. And again,
Wow.
I'm saying this openly and publicly. I
Yeah.
don't need to lie. So, um, it was really, really something. What an incredible experience to get to see all them lives changed. And some of them it hurt. People, just like people that hit the lottery. But that empowerment, education, sharing the profit, at a high level. Basically, my saying's always been, if you help me grow my pie, I'll give you more than anybody you'll meet. But if you want to eat what I've already built, you're not going to do very well very long. Yeah, and I'm big on that too.
So,
The other big
yep.
part I can tell you is, We made a culture that was very family oriented. So even though it was 350 people, I traveled around, took out the top people, and I spent hundreds of thousands, millions over the course of the time on the employees. I mean, taking them to Ritz Carlton on trips. We were just talking about it the other day because one of the top guys in the company is now my executive assistant, and Frank Squires, and he's also one of my best friends, and so it's really really cool. What's really cool with that is he's able to share that culture and everything that I did with all the people, and especially new people when they don't know me that well, and maybe they don't believe that I've done or will do what I've done in the past. Now I have somebody adding validity that's been there, and that family. I let them drive my fancy cars back then, come over to my house. Like, I'll be honest, I really probably did, more than most, I should say. Yeah.
Well, I'm picking up a lot of things about you and your story today that I just didn't know, and I'm glad to hear this. So, all right. So you've got yourself, your stores are blowing up.
Yes.
Okay. I have to imagine, and I'm only saying this because, I'm a guy. Okay. And, I know how money and possessions and things can get you. Tell me about Shawn at that point. I mean, were you the typical, he's got like, did you feel like, man, I've got a really, like, looking back, did you have a really big head in the sense
Of
that
course.
it's like, I am the guy, I am it, like nobody can touch me? Or were you this really sensitive, empathetic individual back then?
Well, I will say I've always been blessed with a lot of depth and empathy. It's probably like it is my strongest traits. It's also helped me win at poker, which is I've done very well at. Um, I have a sense to where I can really ask the right questions, be around somebody, and I try to understand where they're coming from. Some people call it they think I'm making excuses for people, and it's not. I wanna understand what you've done and why you've done it, so I know how to interact with you, and, it doesn't mean that I'm accepting what you've done or think that it's right, um, but, I do have a gift for that. I will say, though, yes, the money and all of it, and I think this is the case with majority of people too, not trying to make light of it just because it's me, but yeah, that ego comes out more, and candidly, due to my upbringing and all that, I needed patted on the back up until really not that long ago, more than most, and there's reasons for that with the way I was brought up and grew up. Um, I was constantly looking for recognition. In most cases, I will say it was never about me trying to, not most, always. I'm not somebody that wants to make somebody feel bad or whatever. It was more of I wanted them to say great job all the time. It takes a while to get to the self-actualization, Maslow's hierarchy. Um, yeah, so I've grown a lot in the last months over that, but the I did have a many moments, though, of arrogance, and again, though, it wasn't, "Hey, I'm better than you," and people that have known me long enough know that was really not my MO, because I really shared. I let anybody sit in my success sit in my cars all the time, do it. I even let them drive them. There was an instance where I was at Easton one time, and I let 6 graduates drive my Lamborghini, which was nuts. They all took turns taking it for a drive, and they still, like, their parents once, I get something not long ago even saying, "We never forgot when you let our kid," which was pretty risky. I'm a risk taker, but um, certainly that ego and all that was boosted. And then, like, hitting the lottery winner too, my wife and I both kind of forgot what was important. And, ultimately it cost me my marriage. But ultimately, it was because as the man of the house, I did not keep God front and center,
So
and
what
thankfully,
specifically cost you your marriage?
well, in my opinion, just not even God was just not he was very limited role in it. My wife was Catholic and relaxed Catholic, so religion was just a minimal part of the marriage, and I can publicly say, and I have before now, um, I believe that we would still be married today if God would have been at the front and center of it. And I always will love her and be there for her if she needs something. That's for sure. It's the greatest years of my life too with her, and I mean, I can truly say that. I don't regret any moment of it, and I can say we were known as the Notebook marriage. Everyone in town, we had date night, which became date day, and, I mentor a lot of relationships, and through the grace of God, have saved relationships and a couple marriages actually that I'm very proud of. And thank you to God for that.
So, did God, for lack of a better way to say it, take a back seat in your life at some point?
Yes.
And as you got married, he just never came to the front? Or tell me, I wanna know
Yeah,
about that because I know
instead
the
of me
Shawn today is different.
yes.
Okay, so
Instead
I
of
wanna
me
know about that.
Yeah, instead of me pushing my not that it had to be that route, but basically I let my wife's Catholicism and the relaxed I call it relaxed, but because it was just more pretty minimal engagement with, she was more on it her own relationship with God, I guess is the best way to put it. We did go to church once in a while, but minimal really in the grand scheme of things. And not that you're going to go to hell if you don't go to church. It's made for when you need fed, which is more often than most people realize. Um, but God did. It's I mean, really, and I had so much gifts from God. I had severe asthma when I was younger, and I was prayed upon in my church, and it disappeared after that. And I had it pretty bad. It was really amazing. I still have a scar on one lung from it, and you know, I got to see miracles as a kid, and I also know that's how I got through some of the challenging alone feelings I had as a young child, um, and young adult. But anyway, the business just got in the way, and the success kept growing, and really put God to the side for many years. And the interesting part about it is then I hit the peak of the success, built a monster home here in Ohio, and I laid in bed, and I don't know, I ended up praying a prayer a couple times at least where I said, "God, I know it's time for you to humble me, and you're gonna have to do it." I laughed with God. My wife's asleep at the time. I'm laying beside her on many nights, actually, or several. I said, "Please don't let it hurt so bad." And I certainly went through an amazing awakening. I really have. And I mean, I'm not perfect by any stretch. And I went crazy after my marriage, did a lot of things I'm not proud of as far as just partying and promiscuous, all of it. I admit it. But that's the one thing my enemies really don't ever get too much on me is because I am authentic. I don't care. I'll tell you anything and everything about me, my mistakes, especially because I know that it can help others and maybe save them the heartache. Um, but it also cost my family some embarrassment, which I recently did another podcast where I came clean about that and apologized and admitted that I stand on my own merit. I made mistakes and I failed the marriage. And I stand on my own. I don't need to talk about like my wife's downfalls with them. That's between her and God. But I certainly messed up. And again, if God would have been front and center, there's no question that it, the marriage would be there. And she's an incredible, wonderful lady. Very, very loving and an incredible mother.
I know one of the text messages you sent me, or I think maybe it was a text. It was you want your kids to love you again.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about like when did that stop and why, and has it been fixed?
Um, yeah, the divorce was very, very hard on them. Honestly, we weren't, the marriage was very solid, even during the years where we're growing apart or whatever you want to call it. In the end, we were still loving each other. We didn't really fight in front of the kids or anything. So they didn't really have any sense until the very end of what, the issues were. So, I mean, somewhat lived a fairy tale. They did. I mean, multi-millions of dollars in experiences. Yeah, not just materials here. I'm more of a experienced person, and we had unbelievable trips. And I included an entourage all the time, including their grandparents, who I spent many hundreds of thousands of dollars on as well. And so it caused them pain, and then my behavior, was erratic after the divorce. I basically, in order to feel the pain, ran around again, partying and acting, being with a lot of ladies. I don't mind saying it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm not proud of it either. And I can't say that's not something I do now. Yeah. Not perfect, but certainly got that out of my system, for any better way to put it. Um, but there was some embarrassment that came with that too. Um, and, as a lead, they looked at me as Superman. And so I broke their heart, and I know it. And so, I mean, I had to take that time away, and it did almost kill me though. The depression and the pain from it, those close to me know it ate me alive, and I cried almost daily about it. And in the last, we still we went a while without seeing each other, then we did and but it was still estranged. But in the last several months, I am very, very happy to say it's come full circle. We chat and text regularly, and then when I'm in Ohio, we see each other. They were just over last night, and I always made them laugh, so they're dying laughing the whole time they're around me. My other talent, I could do stand-up, comic if I chose to. Yeah, I can certainly make people laugh for many hours, and anybody watching this knows that too. I got one line. My brother's the same way, and so, we had a good time last night. But they're back in my life, and I'm again, things happen for a reason. The way I was acting during those few years, it's best that they wouldn't have been in my life, and I've not said that on anything publicly. Um, you know, you go through these cycles, and that's certainly one I'll forever live with and learn. And I don't ever want my family to be embarrassed of me. And I caused a lot of that. And so that's this next push for me to be closer to God, because I want to for myself, but also to be a better leader and mentor than what I have been. You know, I think honestly, a lot of it is I really never got a chance to be a kid. I didn't get to play in sports or anything, so I just went crazy, for any lack of better way to put it, and acted like a kid for a few years. Um, so, but I have him back in my life now, and my son recently moved in with me, and we're bonding. Um, he likes to play poker too, and he's very good at it, so that's kind of a fun little hobby. I don't play that much. I've played a little recently, a little more because he, and I wanted to compete against each other in tournaments. So, and we both have done very well.
Awesome. So, Sean, back then and even now, you had the ability to purchase about anything you wanted.
Yes.
You had very limited limitations. Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, so when you're in that position, and there's a lot of people like that, when you're in that position, what is your God?
Well, I will say this: money has never been my god. I put God to the side, but I never would screw someone out of a nickel. Like, I am very proud of that. Like, I'm very picky about that, being fair with someone and to the extreme. And that's also why my business is very successful. In the pre-owned car business, it's very shady, just to be blunt. And it actually played part of a time period where I went through depression. After buying it, is because I was like, man, I've made a mistake here. This business is just too corrupt for me. My heart's too big, and I am proud of that too. Anybody who knows me knows, and they always say it, that I'm one of the top people they know with the biggest heart. And I mean, I have a big heart for people. I'm in love with people. I just don't want to see anybody hurting, including my enemies. You get mad for a minute, but I can say I don't want any pain on anybody. I don't live my life that way. I remember I was at one church here several months back, And Pastor Greg said, those of you that have been wronged, you know, you have this thing where you probably want to get even or whatever. And I was very proud. I had a few people in service with me that day that know me well, and they looked over at me like, you don't. And I'm serious. I really don't. I've had an opportunity to get even with people, and I can say it's really just not my MO. Maybe when I was a kid, but I really am in love with people. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. And if I make a mistake with somebody and I find out or I upset someone, I don't mind saying I'm sorry, both to them and publicly. I really don't.
That desire to that desire in you, because you've said this all throughout today, that desire to love people, did that come from you as a young child and the some of the pain and everything that you went through, or where did that come from?
I'd say it's three phases. One, I go right to my stepfather who raised me since I was three. I mean, just a heart of gold. Give you the shirt off his back. Again, he may not have been successful financially, but he very had a huge heart and again brought me to the Lord. Um, so there's that. The pain that I had and all of it, like I never wanted to see the pain that I had felt. Uh, Unfortunately, again, not having the relationship I would have liked to have had with my mom and dad. Um, I didn't get to really spend much quality time really with either one of them. And so that was very, very difficult. And so I don't know that love and even wanting to provide for my kids differently. I can say they know and I know I was a great father and still am. I went to almost every event. I'm proud to say that, and they know it. I and the reason I could do that, and this is also what drove me to be an entrepreneur, is that trading time for money. I wanted my freedom, and I was at their school functions, went to their lunches, did magic tricks in the school, like everything. And like I know because some of the teachers reached out to with my youngest graduating. I am very, very happy to say I was able to be all the time. Went a week in Michigan where, you know, most men could not do that, to be in dance classes with my daughter, you know, recitals. And, you know, that heart came from watching that stuff. And then third, of course, is God has always had that seed in me. And I know that he has big plans for me this second half. And I had to go through the craziest of times. And, you know, I don't mind touching on, because most mental health and mental illness is hard for people to talk about. And especially someone in my statue, you wouldn't expect me to be open about it, but I have. And it's helped people. You know, I went through a bout of depression after selling the Verizon business. You know, it was my identity. I was known as the Verizon guy. And then I also was so heartbroken that the help I had given my family and friends was not enough, if you will, and many people still wanted more. And then I bought the car business as well, and then I'm like, man, it's corrupt. And so all that played into a depression piece. Um, and I went into the hospital. I did not want to take my life. I went in there not being able to sleep, and because of the depression and negative thoughts. And when I got in there, painfully, and this is what a lesson in life, but um, no one showed up except a couple people. Not my mom, dad, and I don't, you know, I'm sorry, even this, I don't care if it's aired or not. They should have never done that to me. I deserved better than that. And my stepdad as well, no, they didn't show up, and my friends didn't either. And it really goes to show you when they say it's lonely at the top. Um, that was very, very painful. And then there was that point in the hospital I wanted to take my life. And I remember that was my first touching in a deeper way again with God too. Like, you know, look, I know that this is not the way my life is supposed to end. And I remember actually after having them thoughts and everything, I remember running around in the hospital and there in front of all these people that are in there saying, I want to live, you know. So,
What was it about you that pushed them away to not even visit?
well, I, th- I, I don't necessarily blame myself for them not wanting to visit.
Okay.
I mean, these are I'm talking about people that I helped a ton and my own mother and father and stuff. I don't know what their reasoning would be. I'm not going to try and guess. I forgive them,
Yeah,
but it hurt, you know. Y- Maybe they just didn't want to see me in that condition, whatever it is. It still hurt.
that's true.
And then unfortunately, I felt like, my love was conditional most of my life, except from a couple people. So I really, really think about the term and words unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I am thankful to say that my best friend and CFO is Joe Casa. He really, really helped me understand what unconditional love was. And he did show up many times there and he made sure that I knew it.
Wow.
And I'm so thankful.
Tremendous.
Yes.
So you sold the Verizon company. You sold,
Yes.
I think it was called Wireless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was
Um,
crazy. They let me trademark that name.
it,
Yeah.
it is crazy. I mean, I
Because
remember
they could
Flexicom. I remember
compare
all
it.
of it.
Yeah. Matter of fact, after we had the name, um, Wexner used it for the brawls, I think, in Victoria's Secret or something like that. And like, but I wasn't gonna go up against him.
That's right. So you sold it. How much longer after that did you purchase Toy Barn?
That's the other part too, as a piece of advice. I jumped right into it.
Mhm.
I started communicating and negotiating and working on buying Toy Barn as right away. Like I may have started the conversations too before the actual sell. I really honestly don't remember. If not, it was right after it that
Yeah.
was, I honestly don't remember though. It was close to either right before or right after that I started working on it. Officially owning it was maybe 8 months later, but we were already actively like managing and being part of it like 5 or 6 months later, maybe even four. Because I sold officially on an August 31st, and then somewhere by January, February, March, somewhere in that time frame, we started making decisions and helping run it, but we didn't officially have the sale done until the end of May, which would have been again, you're still only talking 9 months after the sale. And I should have taken time off and not jumped right into something. I really should have. That was a big mistake, you know.
So what are some things what have you done to take Toy Barn to where it is compared to where it was when you took it over?
Well, a ton of it really starts with being ethical and honest, which again, you're already beating the majority of the guys. Um, some of the other items are instead of being known and just selling more high end cars, we started carrying stuff anything from $10,000 up, as long as it was worthy of a Toy Barn name, you know. And we still do that, although at this point in time, right now, we do not have uh, as many cars under $40,000 that I would like to have. It's one of the lower points that we've had in a while. Um, but we are masters in our domain. Our average car that we sell is around 65,000 overall, which people would think it's higher. They still might have that connotation that it's more cars they can't afford, which obviously can be upsetting as an owner because you want them to know, hey, just look at what we have. But we mostly carry American muscle and European. But again, if I get a trade in of a Camry, I'll keep it as long as it's worthy of our name. We don't really sell too many cars though that have high mileage, depending on how you define that. But we don't have very many units at all that are really over 60,000 miles or 50,000 for that matter. Um, we're known for low mileage, high sticker cars. So that's the other thing, what's helped us be successful. I mean, having a solid product that's going to have a minimal reason for someone to be upset about. But when you're selling pre-owned, you're still going to have it. Is every one of my reviews perfect? No. On Google, you're going to get negative ones, but I can say this very proudly. I do and give everything I can to anyone, even the crooks within degree. But you'll go out of business if you basically let the whole community rob you too. The ones that are unethical themselves, and we see it all the time. And what kind of cars they'll trade and then have a problem with. that they didn't disclose, what have you. And that's just part of the business. But so taking care of the customer, even if it's, again, on pre-owned without warranty, you don't have to. But your reputation, I'm proud of it. But yeah, are you still going to run into people that aren't satisfied? Sure. It's nature of the beast, um, nature of the business. But so carrying that wide variety of inventory, and then the overall experience, again, we let anybody sit in the cars, test drive them. People bring their kids there for birthdays. We've actually had a couple birthday parties there, and like many people have come in there again, had an experience that they end up coming back talking about. I recently was in there the other day, and there's a new employee said, "Do you remember before I worked here a couple years ago, you gave me a ride in your McLaren?" And eh, I mean, I've done that many times. I've done a lot of crazy stuff like that. Children's
Yeah.
Hospital, letting them sit in the cars and stuff, and they broke stuff that cost thousands. But I never forget where I came from and the experience that it gave, and we still are that way. Most dealerships that have those high-end cars, you're not even allowed to get near it. There's signs on it, and I'll never be that way. And that's why I know that I'll continue to be successful serving the people in the community, and again, doing things ethically right. Um, that's a big part of it in the culture of the people, the business. And I recently apologized about that too. My head was not in the business as much this last few years. Again, I kind of went through another dark spell because of not having my kids in my life, and they mean so much to me. And that hurt me, and I'm man enough to admit it pulled me away of being the leader that I'm capable. And but I also knew, I had to continue to hit this humbled bottom in order to really put more energy into God. And I have a long way to go. But in order to put more energy and put God as the prime focus and then work from there. And I'm adding to it every day, but I can't say I'm still nowhere near where I want to be with my relationship with God, but I am way further along in these last several months than I have been and since I was a kid, really. I'm actually watching The Chosen, which I really have enjoyed. Have you watched it, Greg?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, is that something? Especially too, even if you're going through a challenging time, there's just a feeling about it, and you feel like you're getting to walk beside God. I'm recently helping somebody with depression now, and I told him to start watching it immediately. I mean, it chokes me up every episode. It's powerful. And if somebody's going through something dark, I don't know, there's just something where you start feeling the Holy Spirit and God. I watched it this morning too. I'm on season 3, at the end of season 3 right now, and yeah, I mean, it's very helpful. It's just another addition into my life that I've added. And if I'm not in church now, I'm generally watching it on at home, then still at least the broadcast of it. Um, but I always feel best when I go in there. It's an amazing feeling. There's nothing like it. And I've been fortunate enough to get several people to go with me, which makes me feel good too, to make sure I'm, walking the talk.
So I got to ask, so I know from as far back as I can remember, you're a numbers person. Like you
Yeah.
just are. You just are. So I know poker is natural for you. Okay. Not that you're a card counter, but I'm just saying you
No, because
you
there's
know
with poker, it's not card counting.
okay, good point.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't.
inexperienced. Okay.
Yeah, I do not gamble. Like, if you're someone like me, which a lot of them do gamble, but I do take offense if somebody says I'm a I do not back blackjack, roulette. I will not go up against the casino. I can't say once in a while a few $100s because somebody I'm with, but I won't. I would rather sit at a poker game and give a guy thousands than I would give any to a casino. So there's a big difference. And for fun once in a while, maybe a sports bet here and there, but I really am not. There's enough risk in business and in life. So my poker is a skill game. It's a fact, and the same guys win crazy, crazy money. The top guys have won over 100 million. That much. Most people wouldn't understand that. And if you
Wow.
treat it like a job, I also respect the guys that do it full time as a job. It's like anything. you can become obsessed with any job or your work. And so, yeah, the thing with poker players, there some do treat it like a job and have a balanced work and personal life, but some of it are obsessed with it. You'll have that, and then it makes it look bad for the others. But I respect the guy that goes in there and can make a living doing it and find balance. And there are many of them that do that. For me, it was just a hobby, which also helped me to become one of the top in the country. I can say, even though I haven't played in years, I'm still top 600 in the United States and
Wow.
top 1,200 in the world, as far as cash winnings. Um, so, I mean, yeah, I am a numbers guy. They call me Rain Man. One of the gifts I got one Christmas, which was very cool, was a big Rain Man poster, and they put my head on in the frame over it. um, yeah, yeah, I have an ability. I run just real close to a calculator. So, and if people's fingers are slow, then I'll beat the calculator.
Okay. No, I get
It
it.
is a gift. Yes.
That's awesome. So, Shawn, I wanted to ask these other questions
Go ahead.
because
Yeah.
what drew me to you is I love what God has done in my own life, and this isn't about me. Okay, so
Yep.
I mean, we both have stories, but I wanted to walk through the, in a sense, for lack of a better way to say it, the older Shawn, like the Shawn from years ago. Okay, because the Shawn today I see as a completely different person than the Shawn even 2 years ago.
I agree.
Forget 15
Yes,
or 20.
I
Okay.
agree.
I want to know what, you're laying in bed, you're looking at the ceiling. Lord, you're going to have to humble me. You
Yes.
went through some things, whether it was the Lord, whether it was yourself, whatever it was,
Yes.
you went through some experiences that led you to a point. And I want to
Yes.
know, what did God do in Shawn's life to bring you, in a sense, back to him and having him be in the forefront of your world?
Well, and as you mentioned a little bit ago, I don't know whether each of the items that contributed are because of God or myself. It's probably well, let's be honest, it's a mixture of both. But the events that led to it is the emptiness feeling. And man, I really get to explain it. It doesn't matter how much you have or whatever. If you don't have God in your heart, the empty feeling will never go away. There is a feeling that you can't explain. And I do know that. And then once you feel and you put it in God's hands too, it's a very powerful thing. And again, I'm way further along, but I can't say that I'm fully anywhere near where I want to be with it. But that emptiness feeling, I've got to start there with that, and the darkness feeling that I started feeling again. Scratching on that depression again. Quite honestly, nothing like the bout of it I had before, but all that played into too, looking at my life saying, "Man, I don't wanna die with the relationship the way it is with my kids, ex-wife, uh, and then, friends, and I want to go on with my second half of life and be, even a bigger mentor and inspiring individual to others." I do believe God has a plan large for me for that. I met with a pastor for a few hours before I moved to Tampa, and he said he felt some overwhelming feeling that I could go on to basically have a big part in changing part of the world. It was an overwhelming, I don't know the exact words, but it was an overwhelming time with this pastor. And I know that everything I've went through has set me up for this. And so I prayed to be humbled. Again, losing my marriage of 28 years, and you know, honestly struggling financially as well. The business suffered because of mistakes that I made. It suffered because of the divorce. Settling that took a lot of cash out. And so the business isn't anywhere near where it can be. And, for the first time in my life, I've approached potentially looking at a capital raise, and that's not something I ever had to do. I've always made it on my own steam, but we'll see what God's decision there is. I've got the next phase of growth is coming here soon, and I don't know. It will be minimal that I will need from an individual, if you will, because of God's blessings. So, and the business is doing very well. But it also is doing well because I put my head back into it, and you start minding the operating expense line again a little heavier, and all of it helps. And I went through this in '08 with the Verizon business. But again, going back to your question, so a strain of financially, the business not being anywhere near what it's capable of, knowing I'm letting employees down, which I consider family. Many of the employees, we tell each other we love each other. It's not a culture you'll find in very many businesses. I'm very proud of that too. Anyone went in and interviewed my 40 employees, they would be very shocked at what they'd say, and I'm very, very proud of that. Again, many of them, we say we love each other to each other. Um, they know that I have that heart and that I care for them deeply. So, you know, all that stuff together made me realize, like, the only way I'm going to find any level of peace and even really continue to function is to bring God back in my life. And I prayed exactly for this. So it's hit harder, and I've just seen little miracles start when I'm living right. I'll gotta be honest. Then I start seeing things happen, big things within the business and all that. If I start straying, because again, I'm not 100% there. As I start straying away from the path, then I start seeing less blessings. So, there's no coincidence to it, and I do know that. I'm happy to say it up in front. Um, and so I also, again, publicly, as I talk to you and as I did the other podcast, it's also me putting myself on record. I mean, it's a big deal because now I got everybody staring at me about this too, and like I'm held more accountable, and I did that on purpose because I want to be. And I know that I am a great person and have a great heart. You just, like anyone though, I'm human. And as I mentioned earlier, I did nothing but run and chase success and help people so much that I also left out myself a lot of those times, to where I needed to really hone in and look at myself. And the other thing that really has helped, I've been single for 8 months, and I got to be honest, I've not been single for 8 months since I was 15.
Hmm.
So even after, yeah, so that helped too. I needed to find a way to live with myself alone. And again, after my marriage, I chased and just had many people involved in my life, instead of taking time to really feel my feelings and look within and figure out what it is I wanted the second half of my life to look like. And again, a long way to go, but the other thing that I love about having God involved, I've developed a bigger conscience now if I stray from, or go and do something that I know is wrong. And like I laugh about it because I'm happy I have it. I feel this tremendous guilt for days that I don't like feeling. So it's making me want to behave even more and more. Behave, for lack of any other way to put it. But
Do you, have you had any like visions or um, thoughts about ministry of any kind? I'm not saying what you do isn't a ministry. I'm just saying, do you see yourself through a different lens maybe than you've ever seen yourself now, where you see yourself really going after the lost or souls or anything of that nature? I'm not
I
saying you
am
need to.
having early thoughts of that now, of like, again, as I piece together what I ultimately want. Part of the other thing that bothered me when I bought Toy Barn is at that point, if I would have just put God first and went into philanthropy, who knows how it would have went. I will say this though. I also believe that God had a plan for me. The Toy Barn has brought me tons of people's lives that I have affected. And so it became a medium to meet people and especially affect thousands of young people that love cars. And again, I'm a unique individual where I can get down and act like a kid with them, share stories, and I can relate and allow them to spend the time in the cars. And again, the fact that I spend time talking every day, I'm reached out to by 5 to 10 people a day at least, seriously. And I do try to get back to almost everyone. Um, which can be a big burden in itself. I pray the Jabez prayer, and sometimes I want to leave the line out, enlarge my territory. Yeah, I'm not looking to
Good
help
point.
anybody today. um, but I do have thoughts of that, where this will turn. Candidly, the biggest thing I need to do now, though, is take the business to the next level. Just like when I expanded the Verizon business, expanding the car business, you make your money on the second location and up, because the first location you're paying for all the geniuses, such as the CFO, the accounting department, and all the, again, unique individuals. You don't need hardly any of those additional when you go to the second location. The overhead will be substantially less, even a much bigger drop than the Verizon business. Yeah, that overhead, you're spreading it between the stores, but not that you're not doing it with the car business, but again, you don't have to have the heavy hitters on the next locations. And I do believe that I'm going to hit the largest stride and the most income of my life inside of the next 18 months. And I speak it into existence, but I also know this: I will be building a kingdom business. And I know on record, I can say you will see
Wow.
me do amazing things with it and affect communities and lives. I know that's what I want to do in my life. Materials is not important to me like they were when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yes, do I want to drive a nice car? Yep. But most of the money that I spend is my Amex points, and everyone knows I like fancy shoes. I pretty much wear
You
Aloe or
do.
Lulu brand, and I like to wear $1,500 sneakers.
Yep. I know. I've seen them. And they're always bright colors, you
Yes.
know? So, is your next location Florida, or
Yeah, the
what does it
next
look like?
location I expect to be in Tampa, and then, more than likely, the 3rd location would be in Nashville, and I really
Wow.
hope to open both by the end of this year.
Terrific.
Yes.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, it's an amazing business. I also can say, though, the numbers, the part of why I love it, the whole business is an algorithm, and I am very, very good at that kind of stuff. They measure 13,000 plus dealers in the system, and I can say I have one of the fastest turns in the country by far, and
Wow.
especially of cars of my price point. The average age of all my cars in stock right now is 24 days. Actually, it's 25 as of today. To give you an idea, the average age of people carrying our type of cars right now in the system, I think shows 65 days. No kidding. Meaning I'm beating it by 40 days a unit,
That's right.
which is insane basically. And anyone in the car business knows this. Toy Barn's been around since 1999, and I also am proud we're at 100 million in sales, which is what the Verizon business did. So it's pretty cool to say you built two $100 million businesses, and the next level will be through the roof. And I know it because it's for all the right reasons now too. And I just know that I can use it as a very powerful medium to affect lives, not just financially, but the experience that people have engaging with me and the staff. That I'm proud of too, because there's only one of me. So I need to be able to have the other people have that culture, and they do. They know that they're allowed to give people rides, let them sit in it, all that. I don't have to be there for that to be the experience. And we just had our biannual car show. It was the largest by far we've ever had. We had over 7,000 people, so
Wow.
large that I think now the city of Dublin is going to require us to have a special event permit of some sort. Um, I mean, very honored and blessed that God did that. Um, Again, that's one of many blessings I'm seeing recently from God, having my kids back in my life. And I know that, and most people don't realize this, they feel too like not worthy, or they feel like they're selfish, but God is waiting for us to ask for blessings. You know that there's a
Yeah.
drawer of
Amen.
them waiting, and you have to ask for them to receive them, and He's waiting for it. And then also to know that you're forgiven. And believe me, that was very, very hard. You know what's interesting? I kept praying for forgiveness because of my divorce and the pain that I caused my family. And then I remember about 4 years ago, I walk into a church there in Bridge Park, and I'm blanking at the second day. I don't know if they're still there or not, next to the hotel in Basso and that. And I'm blanked out on the name of it. But I remember walking in there, and then all of a sudden I heard the voice of, "You already know this. You only have to ask once." And I paid the price, and like that helped me a lot. And because, there was a lot of pain there. I can't stand to think I would ever hurt anybody, and I know that I have. I'm human, and, like, it's also something publicly to share, but I'm also willing to put it right out there where most people aren't, and I can tell you, anybody that's listening that I've ever done anything wrong to, I am deeply, deeply sorry. I mean it from the bottom of my heart too.
When did you know, absolutely know without question, I am forgiven? When did you know that?
I should have known it from my past, and that's why I
Yep.
said I felt this voice in there, praying it in that church, and, there was just a sense of peace of, "You're forgiven now," and then but I still at that point, I was not ready to, change my life enough. There was just pieces where God just kept intervening, and then I think what it really has come down is when I said earlier, is still feeling dark. It ain't gonna work part-time with God. At least for me, it's not. And it's also, again, if why I had a failed marriage in the end. Um, but that feeling that forgiveness was big because that's a heavy burden, you know.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big
But I
time.
mean, the piece of that was then reconnecting with my kids obviously continues to aid in that feeling, too, and then my ex-wife and I have a cordial relationship. Yeah. So I'm very happy about that, and she's happy and in love with somebody now, and they actually just bought a house yesterday. Yeah,
Wow.
I just found out last night with the girls that they bought a house, and I'm very, very excited and happy for her. She deserves it, and I wish her the best, and I told her that and always will. And she also can know that if she needs anything, I will be right there.
Terrific, man.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, I just want to tell you, it's been so awesome to uh, it's been awesome to watch your journey from a distance. I mean, I've watched it from a distance. I've watched it through Facebook. I watch it through just driving past the toy barn, and it's
Mhm.
just everything has. You've always had high standards, and you've always had high expectations, and success has never been something that didn't come next to the name Shawn Cunix. And so today's been awesome for me just to be able to talk with you, ask questions, and listen to your answers and understand your heart, understand you as a person, from years ago that I didn't know. I never worked with you. I wasn't really super close with you.
Right.
But it's great to hear all this. And it's so cool to see what God's doing because you're an individual, Sean, that God can use in a
Mhm.
gigantic way because
Yes.
it's hard to use people that are broke. It just
Yep.
is. But when someone has been blessed and then they use those blessings
Yes.
for God's will and God's purpose,
Yes.
man, you can do wonders.
I know.
And I believe your second half is going to be just what you described. It's going to be monumental. It'll be greater than ever before, but the priorities will be different. And it's just phenomenal. It's going to
Praise
be phenomenal to watch, man. Phenomenal.
I guarantee
So,
it will be. Through the grace of God, I know the gifts I've been given and what I wanna do with them, and I know that
amen.
I'll get the support of family, friends, and the community because, again, I will be walking the talk a lot better than I had in the past, so
Love
still
it.
still still human, you gotta put that out there because as you get
Sure.
more and more in the limelight, which I'm stepping back into with these podcasts and all, you
Mhm.
have more people taking a shot at you, and then the devil likes to mess with you a little bit too when you're one of the chosen, so,
Sure.
uh but,
Sure.
I will continue, and this helps me because this inspires me honestly to continue to, again, walk the talk and be a better human and a mentor and leader to others. And the responses that I'm getting from the podcasts that I'm doing now are overwhelming, and at some point soon, I honestly hope to continue the path of finishing my book, Position to be Lucky,
Mhm.
and maybe have my own podcast show. I don't, I know that I can affect and help many, many people with the experiences not only I've had, but the experiences that come across because I've spent so much of my life listening and helping others. So I do have a wealth of experience and knowledge to help others. And if I don't have it, I can generally find somebody that does. So
I'm excited to see it. I truly am, Sean, and I mean this sincerely. This is not just some side thing. I'll be praying for you, and it's
thank you.
not.
And I'll take it.
And I
No,
say that because I want to see God do monstrous things through you. Okay, that's why. It's not because, oh, I'm going to pray for Sean. No, it's I'm going to pray for you, man, because you're right. The world, people, Satan, you name it, they want you down.
yes.
Okay, and
No, you're
because you
nailing it.
carry the Holy
What
Spirit.
a this is perfect thing to be saying because I really will take it from everybody, not just you. I
Yeah,
need it. But I also promise, man, if I with those prayers and where my heart is and all of it, I know that I can do a lot and give a lot, and you're gonna see such a different person in the second half here.
terrific,
And
terrific.
again, I'm lucky to be a born again Christian that I can know that I am forgiven for God for my sins and continue every day to just be better and closer with God.
Amen. Amen. I really, really appreciate you taking time today to do this with me.
I'm
Okay.
thankful too, Greg, and I'll be praying for you and your family. And I see your post a lot, and it's an honor to know you, and an honor that you would have me on here. And even prior to us getting on here, I do want you to know, um, I virtually said like one of the most spiritual, loving people. Even though you and I have not had the time together, I talk very highly of you, and felt pretty honored that you would have me on here.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm a words of affirmation person.
Yeah,
So
I love
thank
that.
you.
Yep, my
That's my love
5
language.
languages
Okay.
of love is if you're married and you have to read that book, and I tell
Amen.
that start yeah, you need God in your life, but that 5 languages of love is critical,
I
and
know.
unfortunately, we waited about 25 years to read it, my wife and I, but
Yeah, I know. My wife is gifts and gifts. Okay.
yeah.
And I got to get better at it. Okay.
Yep.
So, all right.
No, I know what I recommend is you get her a new Lamborghini.
Well, I know where to get it at
Yeah.
least.